Turning dirt and wrenches here, and today I'm going to show you one of my favorite tractors, which is a 1951 Farmall M. And this tractor is pretty special because it's actually been in our family for 4 generations. I'm the 4th generation to drive this tractor. My great-grandfather bought it brand new in 1951, and it was probably one of the last standard M's. I think in 52 or somewhere in there they switched to the Super M. So this is one of the real late ones. And it has had a lot of stories, a lot of different things that it's gone through, and I only know a fraction of them, but I've had a lot of adventures with it as well. Well, I guess let's just start at the front. This used to be a narrow front tractor, and I found this original IH wide front end for an M and put that on. I just love a wide front end, especially if you're cultivating or whatever. It just makes the tractor so much more stable and it rides better. Narrow fronts do turn a lot tighter, and like I said in my video on the H, you can't beat that for backing wagons in and whatnot. But when I'm out in the field, I like a wide front end, and I think it just kind of looks cooler, but that's just a matter of my opinion. Let's see, I added that headlight. I wanted a better headlight. I've had to replace the governor. That's a used governor, and rebuilt the carburetor. This tractor, the motor has been rebuilt. I think that was about maybe 10 years ago by now, 9-10 years ago. When this is the tractor that I used when I first started farming. I rented my first 10 acres, and it ran terrible. It sat in the barn for years, and it'd been abused over the years. It'd gotten loaned out to people a long time ago, and they just didn't take care of it. But it ran on 2 cylinders and used more oil than gas and all kinds of stuff. But a guy I was working for at the time, really good friend, and he was a great mechanic, a local farmer. He said, well, just bring it over to the shop and I'll help you rebuild it, because I didn't know much about motors at the time. And we rebuilt it, and man, that made a big difference when you have 4 cylinders. Had all kinds of power. I got a block heater on it, just because we do use it in the winter sometimes. The battery's missing right now. We needed it to get something else started, so I'll get that battery put back in and we'll get it fired up here. It's got the little pre-cleaner on it. I think this was optional. And it's got some dirt in it. It still sees a lot of action. What else? The exhaust manifold. Any of you that know about these Farmalls, you know that short pipe that the muffler bolts to threads in with, like giant, I forget, it's like 2.5 or whatever 3-inch pipe thread into the top of the exhaust manifold. And I had problems with that. And I found someone who had a tap, and I actually cleaned the threads out, and that is a piece of stainless steel water pipe that I got from a fertilizer dealership that you use on different chemical systems setups. So that one will not rust out anymore and won't ever rust into the manifold. That was a nice upgrade. I want to say maybe it was like $30-ish at the time. I don't know what it is now, but that's highly recommended if you can get that old pipe out. Oil bath air cleaner. I put a fuel filter on this. I know it has a screen, but I just wanted a fuel filter because I did have trouble with a little bit of dirt getting in that carburetor, getting past the screen. Let's see, got the toolbox up here. That's original to the tractor. Those lights are original. This tractor is switched over to 12 volt, and I just bought 12 volt bulbs to put in the original lights. I have a similar setup to my H, except it's on this side of the tractor with the hydraulics. And so this tractor used to have a loader on it. When it was new, it came with a IH loader, which we still have, an old trip loader. And so it used to have a loader, and that's what this remote is for. This is for the 3-point, and then this is for just a standard remote on the back. I added that step. When I put the 3-point on, it's hard to get on the back, and it's just a lot easier to get up here. This is where all the other tractors, you mount the tractor, and makes it all consistent that way. This might be the only M that has Michelin radial tires on it. I'm not positive on that, but I don't think I've ever seen another one. There's kind of a funny story with that. It needed tires. I was using the tires that was on it when I got out of the barn. You know, we pumped them up, and they did hold air. And they were finally just coming apart. They were Goodyear tires. And Michelin tire dealer was out putting tires on at the farm that I worked at. And I was just joking. I said, well, why don't you price me a set of Michelins for M? And he said, okay, I can do that. And he got back with me and said, well, you're not going to believe this, but the M's rear tires are the same size as a lot of the new front wheel assist tractors' front tires are. And he said that size is really common, and it's actually not too bad on price-wise. I think it was $1,200 for both tires installed, and these are installed tubeless. And when he took the old tires off, my grandpa never believed in putting fluid in the tires. He always put iron weights on it, so these rims have never had fluid in them. And when the tire guy took the tires off, he said there are no marks on the inside of these rims. He said these are the original Goodyear tires that was on this tractor. So of course I said, well, are these Michelins guaranteed for another 60 years? And he just laughed. Said, yeah, call me in 60 years and we'll talk about it. But these, man, I love radials. This improved the ride of this tractor immensely. And I'm sure, you know, that's been probably 7 so years ago. I'm sure you can't get Michelins for that cheap anymore, but who knows? They were a definite upgrade. This has a 3-point on it. This is, I think it's a Saginaw 3-point that I found at a tractor junkyard. So it was well used when I bought it, but we have used it a lot. The drawbar wasn't near as nice as what I did on the H. That was just scrap steel that I welded together to make the drawbar because I wanted to have an actual drawbar on it. But I love this 3-point. This is a nice 3-point. It's got a lot of adjustments on it, nice and strong. I mean, I've picked up cultivators and round bales and everything with this, and it just keeps right on going. It's all nice and tucked away too. I like it. They made it fit real well. And I'm not sure if they even make those anymore. But I was real happy with that. Added another light, because when you're working at night, I just wanted more light. I wanted to be able to see both sides of the implement. Let's see what else we got. This is the original IH seat, and I think that was maybe a deluxe seat. I'm not for sure, but I really like this seat. It's real comfortable to sit in, and I added that little backrest. That made it even more comfortable. Actually, have something to lean your back against. And I got a key on it. The original, it's still there, the little lever that you hit with your foot. We had all kinds of trouble with the new replacement switches that lever hits. Here, I'll get in here and show you. So this is how the tractor would have originally been started. You got this lever, and there was a big switch that poked through here, and it would have been back in here, and you would have had, you know, your 2 main battery cables connected to it, and you didn't have a solenoid. That was the connection between the battery and the starter to make it start. And the original one was on it and it lasted a long time, and then it went bad. And I don't know, they must make the new ones a tiny bit different, because when we started putting them on and you'd use this, they would bend and go up, and then they wouldn't start. You know, they'd get bent just a little bit and they wouldn't go in anymore. Whereas the other one maybe is a little bit stronger, I guess. So I just got a solenoid, normal starter solenoid up in there. And this is just an old key switch, just a standard key switch that it works just as well. Let's see. Oh yeah, that's a power port that I wired in too. When I first started farming with this, a friend of mine gave me an old light bar setup. I think in some of my really early videos you can see it, but I had it mounted on that bolt there and had a bracket that came back up to here. And yeah, I had GPS on a Farmall M. It wasn't auto steer, but I had GPS and a light bar, and I used that for a while. Got a mirror. That's just an old bicycle mirror, and I love that. When some of my fields are a little ways away, one of them's 13 miles, and when you're transporting equipment that far, it's just great not having to twist your head around. You can just drive and glance over at the mirror and see if any cars are coming up behind you. It does have a belt pulley on it. We've never used that. That actually leaks a little bit. Original hydraulic system. What else? Oh, we got a rock rack and kind of just luggage rack in general. They don't have a cab to put stuff, so I put my lunchbox and thermos on that. If you find rocks while you're out tilling, you can pick them up. Got the hand crank. That's not original. The original one got lost when they were cleaning out the barn, 30 years ago. Fell off the tractor. I think they used to clip up there somewhere, but I'm not for sure. Or maybe they just laid it up here between the battery and that belt pulley. But anyway, it got lost, and I bought that one at an auction. And actually, probably about 6-7 years ago, we were cleaning that barn out. We built a new barn for the cows, and we were cleaning that out to make it a tool shed. And we found it in the manure after all those years. It's a little worse for wear, but it's still there. This is some of the abuse the tractor got many years ago when it was loaned out. The cap is supposed to be a cast iron cap, which I still do have. Threads into this casting, and that thread is broke out. Somebody, I don't know if they put a big wrench on it. They just did all kinds of damage to this tractor, but that would not stay on. And that's your that's where you add oil, so you don't want dirt getting in there. So that's just a big freeze plug. There's rubber. It probably seals better than what the original one did anyway. And I've just used that for years. And you loosen it up, and it gets, it shrinks up a little bit. You pull it out if you need to add oil. Since we rebuilt it, it does not burn any oil, so you don't really have to get in there too often. Some of the other damage you probably can't see. Well, maybe you can. The little petcocks where you check oil, that bottom one is broke off. Somebody grabbed it with a big wrench or something when it was loaned out. This it just got abused a lot. And I guess for those of you who don't know, on the H and on the M, there's no dipstick to check the oil. This is a little petcock. You unscrew it, and it's a valve that opens into the oil pan. Then there's another one there. So that's your high mark on a dipstick, and that's your low mark. And to check the oil, you unscrew that, and oil will start dripping out. You can kind of see in the dirt where it's run when I've checked it. And if it's dripping out, your oil level's up to full, and you close it. There's no dipstick. And then if you don't get any out there, but you do get it out there, then well, I need to add about a quart of oil to bring that up. So that's the old school way to check oil. What else kind of upgrades do we have on this? I mean, it is just a standard M. It's nothing special. Different gas cap. The old gas cap got destroyed. And as you can see, this tractor got rolled a long time ago, and it's all kind of dented in there. That's supposed to be straight up and down. But yeah, this is just a standard M, but it's neat that it stayed in the family that long. When my great-grandfather retired, my grandpa bought it from him, and he farmed with it. And then it sat in the barn for a lot of years. My grandpa, retired from farming and didn't really need it, but didn't sell it, just kind of held on to it. And then it got loaned out to some people, and it just really got messed up. I know well, it's on the other side. I don't know if they hooked a chain around it. I have no idea. This was all way before my time. But you can kind of see that casting on the shifter. This whole chunk was broke out when they got it back, and so they had that braze back in there. This casting was broke. It had the loader on it. I think they were just ramming it into stuff in piles or who knows what. But yeah, after that, and it didn't run too well, they just parked it in the barn. And when I was about probably 13 or 14, Dad got it out and we got it running again. We're going to do hay with it. And this was actually the first tractor I drove all by myself, which that's a big deal for a 14-year-old. I mean, to be able to go out and drive the tractor to make hay, that's a pretty big deal. So, speaking of which, I want to get you guys involved in these videos. I know the H video is real popular. I want to know what was the first tractor you guys drove, or first machine? What's the one that you have your fondest memories with? So just comment and let me know. So this is it's got different front tires on it. That's something that's a little different. When it had the narrow front, and we were trying to use it to take round bales out and whatnot in the winter when it's all muddy, that narrow front just pushes its way through the mud, and you bury it, and it wasn't working too well, and it needed new front tires anyway. So these are actually like reproduction Jeep tires, like Willys Jeep tires from World War II, Army type. That was the only size they had that would fit on here that was like a all-terrain type tire. And it actually did help because it would keep the tires rolling. That's what when it'd start going into the mud, those tri-rib tires on a narrow front, they would just stop spinning and start pushing the mud. And these would keep rolling so they'd roll over it. So that helped when it had the narrow front. And then when I got the wide front, I mean, these tires aren't that old, so I just stuck them on here. But if they ever go bad, I'm going to put tri-ribs back on this with the wide front, because the wide front doesn't really have that problem if you get in the mud. Let's see. This grill's dinged up a little bit. I mean, it did have a loader on it that got taken on and off all the time, but I think that could all be straightened out. I'd love to paint this tractor too. I think if I ever get around to painting stuff, this will be the first tractor that gets painted, just because it's a pretty special tractor. This one will never go anywhere, never get sold. It'll always stay. And someday when my daughter's a little bit older and she drives it, it'll be 5 generations to drive this tractor, which would be pretty neat. But can't really think of anything super special about it. I mean, had a lot of adventures with this. When I got 50 acres, I went out and the first year I plowed it with this 3-bottom plow, Farmall M, and worked around just like my great-grandfather and grandfather did. It's pretty neat. Pretty much the only reason that I'm not using this as my main tractor anymore is I got heat stroke, and it lowered my tolerance for being out in the heat, and I had to get a tractor that had air conditioning. I just can't take the heat anymore. But this was a great tractor. If you fill up the gas tank, it will run for 8 hours doing, you know, full out pulling a plow, and it just keeps going and going and going. I think it's about 2.5 gallons of fuel an hour at full load. And I mean, I've used this with that 13-foot disc, and you can drop the hydraulics all the way down on the disc and just let it float, and this tractor will pull that disc in 4th gear, no problem. Actually, this tractor, I did put it on a dyno at the local antique power show, and it's got 38 horsepower, which I believe is what it's supposed to have for a plain M. But it's a great tractor. They Farmall really made a good machine when they made this to last all these years and just keep right on going. It's a nice tractor for sure. Well, thanks for watching. Got any more questions or any other machines you want to see, just let me know. Alright, so this hasn't been started for probably 4 months, so let's get it started and you can hear it run.